What's up, everybody? Good evening. Happy Monday. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Stros Bros podcast. You have myself here, Jerry Morrison, and as alongside me, my good friend Taylor Cotton. Taylor, how's it going, man?
Going good, fellow Stro bro. Hope you guys are having a good day because we definitely did.
Yep. So guys, for those of you guys in the audience, just before we dive into everything, we got some great topics to discuss this evening, and yeah. So I mean, we're going to be talking about everything from updated standings after the trade deadline, to talking about Kyle Tucker a little bit, as he has yet to sign a contract extension, or to my knowledge, even have been offered a contract extension. And then we're also going to talk a little bit at the end about some exciting times at the end of the season for the regular season, and that's the September call up. So we're going to talk about some of the Astros' top prospects and who we think they could call up and who could potentially make a run at getting on that postseason roster. That could be called up here sometime next month. So, but before we get started, guys, please don't forget to hit that like and smash that subscribe button down at the bottom of the screen. Helps people find the content and the channel, and helps allow our community continue to grow. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just jump right in. So Taylor, tell me a little bit about, the last. I mean, now we're 2 weeks post trade deadline, or no, 1 week, right? The second was the trade
That's
deadline.
right. Yeah, but the thing is that a couple of teams. I mean, like the Astros, for example, played what was it, like 19 games, and they played like 19 games in 19 days, something crazy like that. I mean, it was back to back to back to back. So several teams have played several games, three, four, five, since the trade deadline. So got a really good idea of how these rosters are shaking up post trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the teams have had kind of immediate success from those acquisitions, while some have still kind of sputtered a little bit. I mean, I would say probably, in my opinion, the team that's kind of made the biggest noise, and it wasn't even necessarily with a trade deadline acquisition. It was basically just a guy coming off the IL, and that was Jacob DeGrom. I mean, for those of y'all that didn't see his most recent start, I mean, he was absolutely filthy. He threw just over 6 innings and he struck out 12 over that span, and he was touching 102 in the sixth inning, which is absolutely disgusting for a guy that just came off the injured list.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, I mean, of course, the one that I was most interested in, I wanted to see how those new look Padres were rocking with, going against the Dodgers. And we kind of talked about it on the last episode where we thought they could kind of catch up and make some ground, and the Dodgers just went out and whooped them. Like
Yep.
another team that made moves that we called them winners at the trade deadline was the Yankees, and they just went and got swept by St. Louis. So baseball's just weird. But I tell you, I'm still. I love me some Trey Mancini, baby, because I mean that dude. He either doesn't get a hit or it's a home run. There's no in between with that guy.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, he's had some great at bats in his first few appearances as an Astro. Now, touching on the Astros really quick. I mean, we went out and we pretty much put a hurting on the Guardians, and pretty much left no doubt as to separating ourselves. I know we had a couple of last two games where they were more pitchers duels, and our offense wasn't really kind of rocking as it was the first two games. But I mean, the AL Central is, I mean, the Minnesota Twins are leading that division at 57 wins, which is it's pretty bad, dude. I mean, like, they're only 6 games
Yeah.
over 500. Chicago is 2 games over 500, and they're only 2 games out of first. Whereas that record in our division, you'd be 15 and a half games out. So it's interesting to see. I mean, I will say a team that kind of sold off some pieces, but is still putting together wins, man. And that's Baltimore. They just beat Toronto earlier today, 7-4. And so they keep on winning. I mean, tell the viewers out there kind of what you were seeing standing wise for them in the wild card.
Looking at the overall, they're right there with your their wild card hopefuls are your Toronto Blue Jays, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Cleveland, Baltimore. So where they stand, Baltimore is 1.5 games behind Seattle and Tampa Bay. Um, and then they're 3 games behind Toronto. And Baltimore still has games to play against Tampa Bay and against Toronto, but most importantly, they also have some games against the Mariners as well.
Yeah, and I did see too. I have above me, I have the Giants and Padres game on right now, and the Giants just took a 1-0 lead against Blake Snell, but the the Giants, for instance, are 2 games under 500, and they're only 6.5 games out of the NL wild card, which is it's just crazy to think about, man. It reminds me a lot of how the Eastern Conference in the NBA, under 500 teams would make the postseason. Or in the NFL, there's some seasons where under 500 teams would win their division. It's been a real interesting season so far, and it's going to be really fun to watch kind of how the last month plays out, especially with some of these tight races in these other divisions. I know, last we spoke, what the Braves were like a game and a half behind New York in the East, and now they're 7 games back, just like that. I mean, it's almost like ever since DeGrom came back, man, they've just been on a roll, which is it's been cool to see.
Absolutely, and I still think like we've talked about, your usual suspects are going to be in it. Of course, the Astros, um, you know, barring something unforeseen. But as we'll touch on a little bit more for the September call-ups, I think there's going to be some exciting reinforcements coming our way. In addition to that, so the Astros, the Yankees, the Dodgers, those are pretty much going to be. I feel pretty confident we can set those guys in stone for winning their division. Um, but there is still potential for the Astros to take the number one overall record in baseball, which it just kind of depends. I would love personally, that would be the dream because I think we match up really well against the Dodgers, even though they are playing really well. That would be the dream, and it would be so satisfying after all the whole trash can nonsense to just go ahead and just beat the Dodgers in the World Series. I'll tell
Again.
you yeah, I'll tell you the team I don't want to play though, and that's the New York Mets. I don't want to even be anywhere near Jacob DeGrom and Max Scherzer in a 7 game series, where DeGrom could pitch twice, and so could Scherzer. So it's like, yeesh.
Now, in terms of not wanting to play them, yeah, you can make the case, but at the same time, like you got to remember, we didn't necessarily go after a starting pitcher. That's because we have McCullers coming back, right? So
Well,
so
yeah.
we're going to be in a similar situation, having a fresh arm come back and potentially using September as his time to get ready for the postseason and get himself well. So it's a similar kind of situation that they have over there, in New York. So honestly, that's who they picked. I remember a lot of these writers picked Astros Mets in the World Series this year, which would be really cool to see. I think it'd be a fun kind of matchup to see. Two great pitching staffs versus two somewhat, I would say, very similar lineups. They have some
Yes.
great offensive power. Both teams do, and then they also have some great left-handed, just pure hitters. In Francisco Lindor, and then they just, the polar bear. Pete Alonso hasn't really slowed down, man. He just keeps on trucking. So
Absolutely. Well, and that leads us into a nice little transition into our next topic about Kyle Tucker, because when it talks about, when we talk about playoffs and things of that nature, Kyle Tucker is definitely going to factor into that equation. Um, you know, we definitely, he has not signed an extension. There was rumors that an extension had been offered, but I think Kyle Tucker and his representation, they're looking at it as they're going to let him go through the arbitration process. He's going to probably break a record when it comes to the arbitration process. I think we're kind of it's wishful thinking that he's going to take the Yordan Alvarez discount, because there's no question that Yordan Alvarez is underpaid. I think Kyle Tucker's expectation, you know, when you're looking at guys like George Springer who got 25 million, and you're looking at who's the guy with the Cubs that he's finally, I mean they came out today so they were going to cut him. Jason Hayward.
Oh, dude.
Jason Hayward signed a long-term contract years ago. His AAV was around 19 million. So what I think he's going to be expecting and what he's going to be looking for is somewhere in between that 19 to 25 million dollar AAV. Now, as far as the length of contract and things of that nature, if there's even something that could be done, it is the Astros MO. They don't do the long-term contracts. They don't. They'll do, they're really only comfortable going a max of 6 years, which you feel confident that Kyle Tucker, given his age at 25, you could get him that 6-year extension paying through his age 32 season. And then he can go out and go get, another contract from somebody else, or, ideally stay with the Astros.
Correct. Yeah, and he is just for all you guys who aren't familiar with, how it works with player control. So Kyle Tucker, we actually have him under control until the end of until the end of 2025. So he is a unrestricted free agent pretty much until the start of the 2026 season. So essentially the way that would work, is the Astros would offer to buy out the remaining of his arbitration term, and essentially renegotiate an entirely new contract from that point moving on. What's crazy is even though he's under arbitration right now, dude, his salary is, I mean, he hit almost 40 bombs last year, didn't he? And
Yes.
and his salary is $764,000.
I mean, the baseball contract process, it does favor the teams more in control, and that's why the Players Association for baseball, they're trying to make changes to where it's a little bit more of a balanced scale. Um, you know, as far as the arbitration process, their case in terms of value, they're going to look at it based on Juan Soto is going to be going into his second year of arbitration next year. So how these contracts work is, everybody, just like in the NFL, Dak Prescott's contract was based off of Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson's contract based off of Dak Prescott. And, that's just kind of how it goes. So Juan Soto's going to set that value, and then Kyle Tucker, right, wrong, or indifferent, his representation, they're going to do the exact same thing. Which, as those stats that you alluded to and his age and things of that nature, he's just, because of the way the market works and evolves, he's probably going to set a record for arbitration, and more than likely he's going to get it. Now, the Astros try to buy out those controlled years, is kind of how they operate, because they're anticipating that Kyle Tucker's, I mean, right now the man's getting paid, $700,000, 765 if you want to be like technical. They anticipate, him getting, let's call it $19 million, similar to what we did with Yordan Alvarez, right? So what they did is they just bought out those arbitration years by, giving him the 19 million for arbitration 1, 2, and 3. That was money that they had already tacked to give Yordan, but in terms of the value, they're taking the maximum value is going to be, we have him under contract through more of his prime years than on the back end. So, and their value standpoint is they're okay going a 6 to 7 year contract because it's buying out their arbitration years that the Astros were already going to have to pay anyway. So instead, say for example, a 28-year-old a 6 year contract when he's no longer arbitration eligible. So then you're paying a guy from 28 to 34. That's a lot different than paying a guy from 25 to 32.
Right, for sure. So here's what I want you to do, Taylor. Put your GM thinking cap on. Okay. If you were James Click, what would you be offering Kyle Tucker, knowing his previous seasons? Okay, knowing his success last season and rolling into this year, and knowing kind of what other revolving contracts other outfielders with his similar skill set have signed, what would you be offering him?
If it was me, I because of the age, and now this is this is if this is if we could buy out the arbitration years with it. If we can buy out the arbitration years with it, I would get him to sign a 7 year contract. So that buys out, 2023, 2024, and 2025. And then you would pay him 2026, 2027, and 2028. So at the end of his contract, he would be 32. This is the way his birthday works. Okay. If we were able to do that, I would say that you're going to have to, it's going to probably be 23 to 25 million dollars per year. If me being the GM, if I'm unable to do that, just knowing how the Astros operate and how these long-term contracts go. So let's just say that he just wants to completely go through arbitration and be a complete unrestricted free agent, then I have enough confidence in our scouting department and things of that nature, get the value out of him through his age 28 season, wish him best in the future, and maybe offer him, a 5 year deal. Maybe he doesn't, but that value I would say would be roughly around, a little bit lower, 20 million.
So you wouldn't put any sort of team or player option on like year 6 or to get him to say like, hey, if you're still producing, we'll throw a team option on there and we'll agree to terms for a 7th year. What what are your thoughts on that? Especially because he'd be getting into his low 30s for a season.
It's the key. The key is being able to buy out those 3 years of arbitration, just like we did with Alex Bregman and like we're doing with Yordan Alvarez. The whole value scale of the contract is completely different if we're unable to buy those 3 years of arbitration. You're essentially, yes, you could give a player option and things of that nature. I don't think you could get away with a team option. Players like to have control and control their own destiny. But, Carlos Correa, that he was somebody that was okay with having a player option, after the first year. Same thing with, our old buddy over in Boston, the DH. He had several player options in his contract. But then you look at somebody like Bryce Harper, and he didn't want to deal with any of that. He signed a 13-year contract. No options.
And Trout did also.
Trout did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, every and we see how those teams are. Phillies are a disappointment this year. The Angels are always a disappointment. It's just the whole value standpoint. It really stricts on, can we get those 3 arbitration years on? Because I'm even okay with paying more money if half of the contract is his arbitration years where we were going to pay him anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But if he doesn't want to do that, if he doesn't want to sign a long-term deal with us where we're buying out the arbitration contract, then I feel like James Click and Jim Crane are they'll offer him a deal, but you saw the effort that they gave to George Springer. You saw the effort that they gave to Carlos Correa. They believe in their formula and their things thank you, but we don't believe in the long-term big contracts because they don't work. They never work.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this too. I think that kind of leaves a good segue whenever we jump over to the topic of our farm system and the prospects that we have currently. But also too, I mean with Tucker, I mean essentially, so what you're saying, contract terms, because we didn't necessarily like spit those out there for for the viewers, but I mean essentially what you're saying is 7 years for roughly about 175. That would equate to about 25 million a year.
Correct.
So 7 years, 175. And I remember you told me the numbers because I know you like to look at the payroll and stuff. We're number 10 in payroll right now. What does it look like next year? How much room do we have?
So for the Astros in 2023, you're looking at we will drop down to, and the website that I'm using is Spot Rack. And we'll drop down to 152 million would be our payroll. Now,
Okay.
what Spot Rack does not mention, these are players that are, you know, under contract, so arbitration values, that number's going to change. So, this is based on Tucker making $0, that 152. So if he makes 20 million, that's going to jump up.
Right.
Another key factor that you need to look at is Justin Verlander. He has a player option of 25 million. The way he's pitched this year, he's going to make more than that.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I feel like he's going to opt out. So who knows what that new value could be? And there's several other players that are arbitration eligible as well.
Okay.
But
So,
to kind of give you another frame of reference as well, the salary floor before you have to start paying penalties and stuff like that is being raised. And you know the New York Mets are at 200, so they'll be well over 200 once they get arbitration salaries and things of that nature. So um, to make the Astros match, say for example, their 2021 payroll, their 2021 payroll was 147, and then their 2022 payroll they were at 182. So I feel like, I mean, Jim Crane has shown that he is willing to spend the money. Smart.
hmm
He's not going to sign a 13-year contract. It doesn't matter what to the Astros. It doesn't matter if it's half a billion. They don't care about that number.
hmm
They were Bryce Harper when he signed that 13-year 330. He had a 2-year offer from Jeff Luhnow for like $40 million each. It's the length of the contracts that they don't want to get. They don't want to get caught up in a bad long-term investment.
Right.
That's why the Astros have been shown to do a little bit more money if they can buy out the arbitration years.
Right. Yeah, and
So
that makes a lot more sense because then you have more controllable years still. Almost, I mean, I guess the way you think about it is it's at a discount, right? As opposed to letting them, letting their arbitration years expire, and then the cost be astronomical, right? So, I mean, dude, like we got Bregman for 18 and a half a year. I mean, that to me, like that to me is still one of the better deals we've done. I mean, because that was after he finished like second or third in the MVP voting, and we signed him to 6 years for 18. Which was a great deal for us and still is, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean,
right, and how they did Alex Bregman's contract. I mean, next year is the first year that his number balloons up. So like next year, he's going to be making a little over 28 million. So, but that's factored in already. That's factored in. What's not factored in is what's going to happen with the arbitration. So, Brian Abreu, Mauricio Dubon, Luis Garcia, Christian Javier, McCormick, Myers, Stanek, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez just made an All-Star team.
Yeah.
So, our it looks favorable right now, but it just depends upon how do things work in the arbitration. And the two red flags for arbitration are going to be Kyle Tucker and, if we have to do a second one, probably Framber Valdez. Those would be your big arbitration guys.
Now, do you think potentially they have not offered or come to an agreement with Tucker because they could potentially still have that control and use him as a trade piece for the next couple of years?
I don't think they're looking to trade Kyle Tucker. No,
Okay.
I do not think so. Because I mean, after this year, Michael Brantley's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you have Ayers, McCormick, Dubon, and Kyle Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Which out of all those, really the only one that scares you is Kyle Tucker. Now, granted, Kyle Tucker's struggling a little bit. I mean, Kyle Tucker just got done through a brutal July, where he was batting 173. I mean, you're talking about OPS of 560 and slugging 307. Conversely, July last year, I mean, the dude was, what did he hit in July last year? He hit 291, on base percentage of 325, slugging 646, and his OPS was almost 1,000. So, I mean, we're seeing a different Kyle Tucker, and come the playoff time, Kyle Tucker does not have to be 2021 Kyle Tucker,
Right.
but he cannot be what he is right now, because especially with, and we're not really going into much detail about it, but especially with Pena struggling, it can't just be Jordan and Altuve.
Sure. Yeah.
We need Kyle Tucker to step up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but like at the same time, like one thing I will give our lineup credit for is they do a very good job of picking each other up when others are kind of slacking in the lineup. So for example, like ever since Dusty's moved Yuli up, Yuli's been hitting the ball great. And Bregman's also been hitting the ball great as well. I mean, those two guys have made those adjustments and are starting to produce now. So, I mean, like that's what's crazy. I mean, is like the way that we produce is sustainable because at any one given day, one of our guys can go off and pick up the slack for the rest of the lineup, right? I mean, I would much rather have our entire team have, a team batting average of, 250, 260, but have consistent numbers to pick each other up to get us to a World Series and to continuously get us to that championship series and win a pennant than, for example, the Yankees, where you have one guy that's on pace for 60 home runs. Cool. What's the rest of the lineup doing? Right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's why I think, overall in it, and I sent you the power rankings from that was from oh my gosh, I can't remember the source, but MLB.com actually shared it on their social media, and they had Dodgers first, Yankees second, Astros third.
Yeah, you were pretty tilted when you messaged me earlier. I seriously think somebody's just trolling at this point, because you can't watch what the Yankees have done the last 4 weeks and say that they're the second best team in baseball. I won't argue with you on the Dodgers. I mean, I think the Dodgers have kind of, they've shown that they have the best record in baseball for a reason. But I understand I'm a homer too. But I mean, we swept the Yankees, and then they just got swept post trade deadline. I mean, they're not playing very well, and to put them second, I mean, that's disrespectful to us. It's disrespectful to the Mets. The Braves. I mean, several teams that I would rank ahead of the Yankees right now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Alex Bregman, and the thing is that Alex Bregman, his overall numbers were actually better in June, and then he fell off a little bit in July. But the thing is that he slugged better, in July. So I'm attesting it to a little bit of bad luck in July. I would like to say that bad luck is the reason with Kyle Tucker, or even Yuli Gurriel,
Yeah.
or even Jeremy Pena. I mean, Pena we've got figured out. Pena can't hit the slider. So until he adjusts, he's going to see nothing but off speed through the end of the year. But Kyle, his plate discipline has been off this year, and he's usually one of our most disciplined hitters, not named Michael Brantley. Um, his swing discipline has been a little off. He's missing. He's just, I don't know. I feel like when he's made contact, and I might be overthinking this, but I just remember last year, it's just the way that he hit, it was so easy. And it seems like he's pulling a little bit more because he's
Yeah.
hitting into the shifts a lot and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so one thing I've seen, and noticed is that, anytime a guy always has a good year, unless your name is Paul Goldschmidt, right? A lot of the times the league tends to have an adjustment period, right? And that adjustment period are, updating of the scouting reports and the analytics to where teams have the ability to adjust their strategy and tactics against you as a player. And so that's why, like, you see the really good pure hitters like Michael Brantley, he's adjusting from at bat to at bat, pitch to pitch, right? That's why he's so good at what he does, because he allows himself to trust his hands, and in doing so, that's what makes him hit on such a consistent level for the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. So I think Kyle Tucker did go through a lot of bad luck too at the beginning of last year, and it's very similar to what we're seeing now. The balls that he is squaring up and getting out, he has very high exit velo. He's just hitting it right at somebody. And I noticed that a lot before Julian Bregman got hot and started, actually producing more. Is that they were squaring balls up. It wasn't falling right, and so that's why, you gotta still kind of tweak and make those adjustments as you go. But eventually, the hits are going to start falling. It's not going to happen forever, right? You just got to stay diligent, stay in it, and continue to work. So, it's going to be super exciting, man, to kind of see where Tucker goes for the rest of the year. I mean, hopefully he gets hot, and hopefully, man, if
We
we
need
get,
him.
yeah, I mean, and if we get Brantley back, oh my gosh, dude, our lineup is going to be disgusting.
Well, let's talk about that, because September, like, that's when you can get some like reinforcements. And I mean, you already mentioned it earlier. I was kind of holding that back because I wanted to, like, do a little surprise, but I am so excited that we're gonna get McCullers back. That's that dog, and he's just gonna be not just the pitching, but like what he does in our locker room, the way that the players respond to his energy. I'm so excited because, like, it's a little bit different when Justin Verlander's on the mound. The hitters, the bullpen, everybody just gets like, they just have such confidence that they're going to win because Verlander's not going to give up runs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that Lance McCullers gives up a lot of runs. I mean, last year Lance McCullers was a stud. He's still a stud, but it's just the way that McCullers pitches and the energy that he puts off. Like, it just gets everybody just ugh.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar, like with Carlos Correa, when everybody would talk about like the whole cheating scandal and the my time and stuff like that. I feel like having Lance back in the rotation. I mean, even if he's only as 80% of effective as he was last year, that would be a huge win, because 80% of Lance McCullers is better than a lot of pitchers in the major leagues. But it's just that energy, that dog he's going to bring in him, and I just can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and traditionally he's been great, in the postseason. So, I mean, even if it's something where we use him as kind of that bridge guy to get us to the bullpen, to eat up innings to save ourselves from a potential bullpen game and a 7-game series. I mean, he has the stuff to go out there and do it. So, yeah, man, I'm really, really excited. Hopefully we can get him and Brantley back and healthy. I mean, and that's just going to be kind of the icing on the cake. You know what I mean? Imagine if we end up with the regular season having the best record in the AL, and then we get those two guys back.
100%.
So,
100%.
but yeah, and we do want to move on, and we want to chat a little bit about those September call ups and getting some of those reinforcements now. Taylor, who are you kind of anticipating that we may see get brought back up? I mean, I know obviously we're probably going to end up seeing Corey Lee get called back up. But is there anyone else, on the Astros top prospect list that you would anticipate seeing?
I was gonna say, I wasn't considering Corey Lee, considering we traded for Vasquez, but Dusty Baker refuses to play Vasquez, so who knows? Maybe we won't see Corey Lee. Um, the one who I really think is gonna be the guy, Hunter Brown. So he
Mm-hmm.
is our top pitching prospect in the minor leagues right now. He's been tearing up AAA to the tune of a 2.52 ERA. In 85 innings, the dude has struck out 115 batters. That's pretty. That's pretty sick. Um, oof. I mean, his WHIP is a 1.14. I mean, the dude's going to be nasty. Now, I don't think they're going to be calling him up to be a starter. Now, I think that's the long-term plan.
Mm-hmm.
But what I kind of think that they're going to do is kind of like Christian Javier, having him in a like a long relief type setup. And with when Lance McCullers comes back, I don't know that they don't do the same thing with Javier.
Yeah.
So it's like a situation where you have Christian Javier and now Hunter Brown, two pretty live arms that, you know, what it allows you to do is it allows you to rotate Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez on, short rest situations. If they go on their first game, if they go like 6 innings, and if you needed to pitch Verlander again, 3 or 4, now you bring in a Christian Javier or Hunter Brown in long relief to get you to the back end of your bullpen. Because the thing is what we've seen, the more batters get familiar with your bullpen pitchers, the greater chance they have of hitting them. Um, the Dodgers experienced that when we won our World Series. The
Mm-hmm.
Red Sox, the Red Sox had the same thing, both against us because we had a lot of injured players, but they saw our bullpen a lot. The Red Sox did, and they beat us up.
Yeah.
Um, the only exception to the rule is Atlanta, but that's because Atlanta's bullpen is not human. But um, but a couple of the guys that had been nails, even last year in the World Series, a couple of the guys that had been nails, we were getting hits on. And I mean, Martin Maldonado was getting hits. Alex Bregman, unfortunately not, but Carlos Correa. I mean, the more we saw these apparently unhittable relievers, the easier they became, in the at bats. So having those bullpen guys, like having a Christian Javier and having a Hunter Brown to, stretch out your bullpen is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the guy that I'm kind of intrigued to, and hopefully we'll see. So he's a pitcher. He's not like in the top 15 prospects, but he is in the top 30 or 40 or so. And that's JP France. So for those of you guys that don't know JP France, so right now he's projected to make his major league debut. He's 27 years old. He's projected to make his major league debut sometime next year. But let me just spit out some numbers for y'all. So this season, okay, he is 2-4. Okay, he's a reliever. He's thrown 89 innings, and he has 111 strikeouts in 89 innings. His Ks per nine is 11.2, and currently his left on base percentage, so the percentage of guys that he leaves on base, is 74.2%. So 3/4 of the time when he comes in with runners on, he's leaving them stranded, which to me seems like pretty good numbers, especially with strikeout numbers that are that high. That tells me he's got some blow up by you kind of stuff. I would say, very, not Chris Davinsky, Ryan Stanek like. And so, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see kind of who they call up to get them some help to kind of give those other main guys some rest and really try to, get these younger guys some experience in the show. Let me see here. Taylor, do you have the prospect list up right now?
Um, not the full list, but
Okay.
you know, I really do think those would be, those would really be the ones that you're gonna see. Um,
You think Pedro
I
Leon makes
just,
an appearance?
I thought that, but then bringing up Mauricio Dubon,
Mm-hmm.
I if I mean if because the thing is you can only carry so many players. You can only carry so many players, and if we're going to be carrying 12 pitchers, that's really going to limit your pool. But I think that was kind of also like what James Click had envisioned when he traded for Vasquez and Mancini. Um, is it just gives us that much more depth? I mean, if Brantley doesn't come back, Pedro Leon is a possibility. I I I just don't think he's ready right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Pedro Leon he's still in Double A too, isn't he? Or did they promote him to Triple A?
Yeah,
If
he's
they
in
did promote him
AAA.
to
He
Triple A,
was,
it's recent.
yeah. On the season, he's hitting like 237, and this is a combination of I think it's Double A and AAA, but he's got like 32 stolen bases. He's slugging like 450 or so. So I mean his stats aren't bad. I mean I agree with you. I think there's still an adjustment period for him. But I mean he's exciting. He can steal bases. You know what I mean? And if it's something where it gets some guys like Jake Myers or Chas McCormick to wake up a little bit, I mean it's worth a shot, right?
I mean, the concerning thing is that him being in the PCL Triple A, him being in the Triple A, that's a hitter's league, and
Mm-hmm.
he's not really hitting, not
Yeah.
for average, not for power. Now, conversely, when you look at Hunter Brown, who is pitching in a league where people are hitting, and he's missing bats, and he's keeping the runs down, and the dude doesn't really give up. I mean, he's done even out of 39 double play opportunities, he's converted 8 of them.
Mm.
So the dude keeps the ball down. So like those kind of stats are impressive, and that's like okay. And you could always use more pitching. Um, I'm not saying that we can't use more hitting, that we can. I just don't know if Pedro Leon's ready. It's a different situation than like when we brought up Edman, brought up Carlos Correa, brought up Kyle Tucker. I mean, these guys were raking. We had to bring them up. But Jordan Alvarez, there's another one. I mean,
Yeah.
so I just think it's a different situation. So I don't. I think if we bring up somebody for September, it's going to be pitching related.
Yeah, I mean it's in I'm really excited to see Hunter Brown. I mean, especially because the guy has triple digit kind of stuff. He'll be consistently upper 90s and he'll touch 101. I think I've seen I've read that he's hit 102 a few times. But yeah, I mean it's going to be exciting regardless. To see. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to be kind of like that front end guy that they're going to call up first. I mean, I know typically in the Astros past, we typically like to carry 3 catchers in September. So it wouldn't surprise me if we
True.
do see Corey Lee get called back up. If we don't see Corey Lee, what about Yane Diaz? Because he's up there too, man. Like him and Corey Lee are like 4 and 5 on that prospect list. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been seeing a lot of highlights recently of Diaz and Sugarland, doing some damage. I mean, and combination of double and triple A, he
Yeah,
hit.
he's got 19 bombs. He's hitting 297, slugging 522,
Mm-hmm.
OPS of 869. And then, even looking at his splits, here, he started off hot and has just kind of maintained that. He just kind of maintained that throughout the year. So it's not even like Pedro Leon, for example. Pedro Leon, he started the year just really rough. He's picked it up the last 2 months. So Diaz does have more consistency to him. So you might be onto something with that.
Yeah, I mean, and also too, man, like he doesn't strike out a lot. Like his K percentage is like in between 15 and 16%. And his weighted runs created plus this year is, right around that 110, 111 range. You know what I mean? So like he to me, he's putting up the kind of numbers I would like to see a guy kind of get a shot, even if it's, 10, 12 at bats over the course of a month. But just to kind of get his feet wet, and let him know like, hey, this is attainable if you continue, to work hard. So, but yeah, man, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the channel and are enjoying watching our hometown Stros do work, and hopefully we'll have a fun end of August and also rolling into those September call-ups. So yeah, we'll let everyone go. Have a great evening, and we will see everyone on the next episode. Later.
Later, guys.